Hi everyone, today we will the list of 10 countries that don't actually exist, but you can still visit them. There is no universally accepted definition of what makes a country a country. When you start looking, you soon discover that the world is full of wannabe states, would-be countries, and micro-nations yearning for recognition. Places that have failed to secure a seat at the United Nations General Assembly, and have no widespread international recognition as a sovereign state. But many of these non-countries have at least the outward trappings of national consciousness, including a flag, some form of government and a claim to territory, as well as a seriousness of purpose. This list will get your adventure juices flowing. Number 1, Greenland. In 2009, Queen Margrethe II of Denmark traveled to Greenland to give it self-rule. She donned national dress for the occasion, knee-high sealskin boots and a hoodless anorak. She delivered the self-governance law to Greenland's parliament, so ending 300 years of Danish authority. Under the law, the Queen remained Greenland's head of state, but the world's largest island gained control of its police force and justice system. Greenlandic, spoken by nearly all island residents, became the official language. It was the penultimate step, they say, towards full independence. Number 2, Somaliland. In 1960, former British Somaliland became independent for 5 days before joining the former Italian Somaliland to create the Somali Republic. But persecuted by Southerners, Somaliland seceded after a civil war, reverting in 1991 to the boundaries drawn by the Brits. Somaliland has all the hallmarks of a fully fledged country: its own parliament, currency, car registrations, and even biometric passports. Yet it is unrecognized by any other state. The rest of the world prefers to pretend the Somali Republic is still a viable country. Number 3, Barotseland. Barotseland is traditionally a mobile kingdom. Every year, as Zambezi River floodwaters seep slowly into their pastures, the people move to higher ground, leaving their waterlogged villages behind. The kingdom's history stretches back 5 centuries, but during colonial times Barotseland was a British protectorate, governed alongside Northern Rhodesia but with greater autonomy. When independence came, Barotseland was supposed to maintain that element of self-rule, but successive Zambian governments promised, and then failed to honor, the deal. In 2012, the royal household announced a peaceful disengagement from Zambia. Number 4, Transnistria. This is a time warp back to the days of the old Soviet Union, where the hammer and sickle continues to flutter in the corner of the national flag. A hawk-eyed statue of Lenin still graces the front of the parliament building in Tiraspol. Since separating from its neighbor and foe across the river Moldova, the sliver of land on the left bank has been bolstered by a sense of collective victimization among its residents. Over 500 kilometers from the nearest Russian border, they see themselves as Russians marooned by the collapse of the USSR. Number 5, Meskisha. The announcement took outsiders by surprise. After selecting a new leader in 2009, the Council of Elders made a declaration: from this day forward, Meskisha would be independent from the rest of Nicaragua. Local feeling was well expressed by the new top man, the great judge of the nation of Meskisha. Stroking his thin mustache thoughtfully, Hector Williams made reference to 1894, the year his homeland lost its autonomy. People have been waiting and waiting for this for 115 years, he explained. Number 6, Isle of Man. This is the British Isles, but not the United Kingdom or the European Union. They make their own rules here, and have done for a long time. The Parliament, the Tin-walled, is the world's oldest continuous ruling body, governing the island since the Vikings arrived in the 8th century. Their democratic credentials are exemplary, chalking up a world first in 1881 by giving, proper date, women the vote in parliamentary elections. In 2006, they lowered the voting age to 16. Not bad for a country that doesn't exist. Number 7. Lakotah. In 1868 the Lakotah Sioux signed a treaty with the US government promising the Black Hills would be theirs forever. A few years later gold was discovered and the government changed its mind, reneging on the deal. Over a century later, a US judge awarded compensation for the land at 1,877 prices plus interest. But the Lakotah Sioux won't take the money. To them, the Black Hills are sacred and not for sale. And they were stolen anyway. In 2007, the Republic of Lakotah was formed, withdrawing from the treaty. Not so much secession as a reassertion of sovereignty. Number 8. Tibet. The spiritual leader of Tibet, the 14th Dalai Lama, fled in 1959 after a failed uprising against Chinese rule. When the Chinese People's Liberation Army fired artillery shells at his palace in Lhasa, he rode away on a horse under cover of darkness. China's official explanation was that he had been kidnapped by bandits. Following a course prescribed by an oracle, His Holiness secretly crossed the Himalayan mountains and was offered asylum in India, so beginning more than half a century of exile. Number 9. West Papua. At the end of Dutch colonization in the 1960s, the Indonesians took over, promising West Papua a plebiscite on their future before the decade was out. When it came, the referendum took an unusual form. Just 1,025 tribal leaders were handpicked by the Indonesian government to represent nearly 1 million Papuans. The tribal leaders all voted to remain part of Indonesia. Years afterwards, some said the so-called act of free choice had not felt particularly free. And finally, number 10. Murrawarri. How come Queen Elizabeth II of England, as constitutional monarch of Australia, has the right to govern Murrawarri? A country can claim authority over another territory in just 3 ways: by winning a war, signing a treaty, or occupying previously unoccupied land. No one in Murrawarri, which straddles the Queensland New South Wales border, remembered signing of a treaty, nor fighting a war. And they'd been living there long before the Europeans appeared. So in 2013 the Murrawarri issued a declaration of the continuance of the state of their nation, a fundamental challenge to more than 200 years of colonial rule. I hope that today's program will amaze you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more.